Sup guys, so absolutely buzzing with the entrance we had on the autumn competition. 37 entrants, well done all of you that took part. Pity none of you could beat one of the teachers though, so this is your second tutorial. We're going to be looking at another facet of composition here and going for some leading lines and also the rule of thirds. So these two again, both using that sort of grid, that 3x3 grid, where you end up with those intersecting points. For this, not too bothered about you focusing on getting any particular subjects on those intersecting points, but we'll see if we can get some examples of what I'm meaning by either the rule of thirds or leading lines. Okay, I've actually just stumbled across what will be my first example of leading lines, and you can see just behind me here I've got the pathway leading up to what we call a vanishing point in photography, which is where basically you can't really see what's at the very end of that, and the wider a lens you've got the better for this type of image. But basically looking at that, I've got the lines of the path as well as the lines of the top of the trees all drawing you towards that end point. Now with leading lines, it is better if you can have a subject to focus on at the end of that leading line, but nothing wrong with just having a line that goes right the way through your image from the very start right to the end. And different ways you can do it. You can do it diagonally, or you can do it like I did there, where I've actually got the line going right through the middle. When you do that, it's better to have a little bit of symmetry to your picture. So with this one that I've got up on screen just now, you can see how basically the left hand side and the right hand side of the image are both very similar, quite symmetrical. And when you've got that type of composition, having the line running through the middle of the picture tends to look a little bit better. Let's see what else I can get. I've got another one here, just over to the side here. I've got this log, and up through the back of the trees you can see a nice sort of landscape there. I'm not sure if you can see that on this video, how it's going to expose. But basically my idea here is to try and get that log acting as my leading line to start you off at the front of the picture and then take you up through the image and then get a wee peek at what's through the trees on the other side. So I'll put the image up now and let you have a wee look. So you can see, taking a look at that there, I've got the log starting off at the bottom left. I've thrown a little bit of a Dutch angle in with this one, where the screen's sort of tilted, and leading up to the blue skies on the top right of the image. So you might be wondering, well, what is a leading line in photography? A leading line is basically anything that forms a line, as the name kind of implies, that then leads you through the image. So generally what you would want is your line to start somewhere at the bottom of your picture. Ideally the bottom left or right, but it doesn't have to be, and I'll try and find an example of where it doesn't have to be right through the middle. It doesn't have to be at either bottom corner. And basically the line should be the first thing that your eye sees, and then you get drawn along that line as you look at the picture until you see, hopefully, a subject at the end of it. I'll throw up a few examples of pictures of mine I've taken in the past where I've got leading lines that I think have worked to quite good effect, and I'll do a little voiceover for them because I don't have them on me just now. So this first one we've got here is of the staircase in Aberdeen, and used the banisters of the staircase to act as leading lines taking you up the staircase, and timed it with a couple just at the top to give you a little bit of a payoff with them. This next one is an interesting one. This was taken on my iPhone, and it was actually for a competition with another pupil, where we had to frame something within a frame, and I've positioned this in a way that it uses the fence as a sort of leading line from the left hand side over to the wee lighthouse monument thing on the right. Drone shot here of the Aberdeen bypass getting built, and this one I really like because it starts off at that bottom left. The road then winds its way through the image draws you into the end, which would be the city centre itself. Another drone shot near the same location. This one not quite as good, but you still have that road acting as a bit of a leading line from right to left, and the sun being what then hopefully catches your eye at the end. And finally, out on a walk towards Clachnaben, we've just got a more basic one here where you've got the pathway drawing you through the image and sort of to a vanishing point where you can't really see what's at the end of that line. Now, leading lines can be quite difficult, so that's why I've kind of combined this with rule of thirds in general for this month's theme, because if you struggle to get a leading line picture, we can just go for something simple as the rule of thirds. And with the rule of thirds, you use that grid we've talked about before, and you divide your frame up into thirds, both horizontally and vertically. And if you were taking something like a landscape shot, to apply the rule of thirds and get a more visually pleasing image, what you would generally want to do is have either 1/3 of the frame as the ground and 2/3 as the sky, or 1/3 as the ground and 2/3, is that what I just said? Or the other way around. If you've got 3 elements to your picture, so let's say you've got the ocean or some sort of foreground interest, some sort of mid-ground interest, and then the sky as well, then you can split it up into those thirds as well. Again, I'll try and find some pictures as I go out on my walk today and talk you through what I find. Okay, so for a composition which is looking at just the rule of thirds, I've got this image here in front of me where try to split it into 2/3 for the sky and 1/3 for the ground and trees and buildings there in the at the bottom of the picture. And here's the image I came up with from that composition. Nothing too fancy here, but just quite visually pleasing to have approximately 1/3 of the image as your ground level stuff, and then 2/3 taking up by the sky, which was looking quite bonny. And this one here is looking at splitting up into 3/3. So you've got the nearest trees in the bottom third there, the sort of mid-ground, more distant trees as the second third, and then the sky as your top third. I got one more here for leading lines. I'm going to try and use this little fence type thing, barrier to the field here, to act as a wee curved leading line towards the church building in the background there. So here's the image I've got, I'll talk you through it. So this is the image I settled with here. I'm not overly happy with this one, but you do get the impression of seeing that fence as your sort of eye-catching point to begin with, and as you follow that fence through, you then end up with the building there as the main subject. Again, trying to get that approximately at the top right intersecting point. And that basically takes me to the end of this video. I will show you a few more images that I took on the rest of my wee walk round Aboyne, and you can see how with some of these I'm trying to incorporate a little bit of a line to guide you around the image, and also taking into account with some of these the intersecting points and points of interest that we want to try and position our subjects on, and just some fun images as well. So hopefully you've learned something about leading lines in this video tutorial and what they can do for your image. Hopefully you'll manage to find one yourself for this month, but if not, just going for a rule of thirds landscape shot would be perfect as well. Good luck, guys.